Hey guys, welcome back to another video. Today we're going to be replacing this factory Toyota Bull Bar on this IFS 2003 Landcruiser 100 series with this ARB Deluxe winch bar. We're also going to be doing all the electrics and the wiring, so stay tuned and we'll show you how to do it. Right, so the first step is going to be to remove the old bull bar. You can use a breaker bar. In our case, we're going to use a rattle gun with an 18mm socket. Alright, so up under the front of the bull bar, we'll show you what to do on one side and then you just want to mirror it on the other side of the car. So if you see here, to get this indicator out easier, I'm just going to undo this little bolt here and that one there. And then your 18mm goes on this bolt and this bolt to undo those. And there's a corresponding set on the other side of this bracket that you also want to undo. Just leave one bolt in on either side and get a mate to help you hold one end while you undo the rest of the bolts. Yep. Alright, so to get these brackets off, you want an 18mm and 19mm. These are 18, and this one and the ones at the bottom of the hook are all 19. Now that we got the old brackets off the chassis rails, we're going to undo these 3 bolts, and that's going to allow us to slide the bash plate in later when we get the bull bar on. The correct size for these is 12mm. So what you have to do now is cut the bottom of this bracket off so that it's level with the bottom of the chassis rail. So grab a ruler or similar, pop it up so that it's level with the bottom of the chassis rail, and just mark a line on the bottom of the bracket. Try and follow that line around. Then you can grab a hacksaw or an angle grinder and start cutting off the bottom of this bracket. This is going to be hard with this. Thoughts?
Keep going.
Grinder. No, keep it rolling, cut it, and then we'll just flash over the screen, upgrade, and then you just see me grinding it here. Cool. So you can do it with a hacksaw, but in the interest of time, we decided to use a grinder. Just grab a file once you're done and just file off any of the sharp edges. So now that you've filed that down, do the other side and then just apply some touch-up paint. We've just grabbed some black enamel rust guard paint, so we're just going to touch up the areas where there's bare metal. And that's it. Repeat the process on the other side and you're ready to put the bull bar brackets on. So now that the paint's dry on the chassis rails, we're ready to install the bull bar brackets. So if you lay them out like this, you can tell which one goes on which side. So this one's on the left here, on the driver's side. That one will reuse the 80mm long bolts that you took out before, and you'll be reinstalling this hook as well. And then on the right hand side, you'll be installing these new 40mm bolts with spring washers. So go ahead and grab the left hand side bracket and slide it on. We won't be doing it fully tight at this stage, we're just going to be doing it finger tight. And then we'll head over to the other side, grab the other bracket and slide that one on. And again, the new bolts from the kit, 40mm long. and then we'll move to the next step of the process. So the next step in the instructions calls for a 13mm drill bit to be used to drill through the chassis rail. Now there is an existing hole in the chassis rail on the inner side, so you want to line that up with the bracket and then tighten up the bolts so that it holds it there, and go from the other side and drill through that way. We've tightened up the bolts with the holes lined up on the inner side, and then with a pencil I've marked where the hole should be coming from this side. Then I grab a punch. Now the reason you do that is so that the drill bit doesn't move around while you're trying to drill. Then we're going to start with a relatively small drill bit first, drill through, and then progressively get larger. Alright, so once you've done one side, you want to do the same on the other side. So again, we've used a bit of touch-up paint in the areas where we've drilled through the chassis. Grab the crush tubes, the 100x10s and the fine thread 30x10s. And you want to put the crush tube onto the longer bolt and feed it through. Again, just finger tight all these. This one here goes through this hole and into a captive nut that's actually inside the end of the chassis rail. And then you can repeat the process on the other side. So the bull bar brackets are now on finger tight. What you want to do is measure from this outside edge on this bracket to the outside edge on this one here. It needs to be about 860mm. Once that's done, go ahead and tighten up all the bolts on these brackets. So you want to do these ones as well as inside and underneath. Now ARB doesn't actually give a torque spec for these bolts, it just says to do them up securely, so we're just going to go around and make sure they're nice and tight. Next we need to fit 2 of these 10mm cage nuts on each chassis bracket. Once you've done one side, repeat on the other side. Then you want to fit 4 of the 6mm cage nuts in the bottom section of the bar. And you can use a flathead screwdriver to make it a little bit easier. So these rubber bumpers aren't actually in the instructions, but it's a lot easier to install them with the bull bar off the car. So you'll see they have a few captive bolts in here, and you want to use these small nuts that come in the kit. So the way you do it, it has a slit. You feed it around either side of this post. And just check that it's nice and snug up to the bull bar, and then you can go ahead and screw these in on the other side. And then repeat the same on the other side on the other post, and we're ready to put the bull bar on the car. So the bolts you're going to want for this step are the 30mm long M10s. You're going to want the heavy duty washer and a spring washer. Just to show you, because it's going to be hard to see, you're going to want to install them into the 2 cage nut slots that we had earlier, but you're going to lift the bar on and then from the inside underneath install them in like that. Alright, grab a mate again and lift it up onto the brackets. So we put those 4 bolts in. That's just going to hold the bull bar while we position it. And then once you're happy with it, you can tighten them all up. So we've just taped some washers together, and that's going to give us a nice even spacing all the way around the bull bar. So what you want to do is put them in, lift the bull bar up, tighten one side and repeat all the way along, and you'll get a nice even line all the way. All right, let them do. Oh. So we've tightened all the bolts on the bull bar, and that's now going to hold it in place. Now the last thing to do is to put in the pinning bolts. Now there's 2 holes to do that on each side. There's one down here underneath the bull bar, and there's one in here, so you have to get the drill in like that and drill that through. It's a 10mm hole. Yep. Now that we've let those dry, we're going to grab our 30mm long bolts. We're going to use a spring washer and a normal washer and insert one at the bottom and one at the top, and we'll repeat the process on the other side. You're going to want a 16mm socket for these as well, and the idea is that these stop the bar from actually pivoting once the bar is actually secure. Now there's no actual torque setting provided for these, they just need to be nice and tight. Once you've done this side, repeat the process on the other side. Now you can grab your bash plate and install it using the 3 bolts that we removed earlier from this front cross member. So that's these ones here. And then the front section uses these 6mm bolts and spring washers, and they install into the cage nuts at the front of the bar. So now grab your old bolts and adjust the plate so that the holes line up. Now you'll notice that the plate slides between these brackets and the actual cross member, so make sure you try and slide it up underneath. You can use a hammer to make it a little bit easier. So just do them up loosely by hand so that you can adjust the plate round and make sure they all fit. And then you want to use a 10mm socket for these front ones and a 12mm socket for the ones at the back. So as before, there's no particular torque settings on these, but just do them up nice and tight. Alright, so we're going to start installing the indicators now. As part of the kit, you get this surround, you get the actual indicator itself, and you get this piece of extension cable. Now, we're going to be wiring up these 3 wires to the existing indicator wiring in the car. We're going to tap into it so that you get the signal, and to do that, we're going to use these connectors from Nava. Now these are waterproof. Depending on your style, you can solder it or you can use butt connectors. It's really up to you. Now depending on whether you've had a bull bar installed previously, Your setup may look a little bit different, but this is what ours is. So we've got 4 wires and we have 2 going to the Parker bulbs and 2 to the indicator bulbs. You'll notice on the new wiring there's only 3 wires. That's okay. One of them is just a common earth. So in this setup you'll just be cutting one off and leaving it aside. So take some snips and you can cut the existing wires. And then you can just set that aside. Now I'm just going to cut back this plastic a bit to give me more wire to work with. These 3 wires, the red one, the white and the black and the green in my setup are the ones that I need. This shorter one I'm just going to tuck away so that it's out of the way and I don't get confused. So I'm going to cut these 3 to be the same length. And then I'm going to strip each of these and get them ready for connections. Now because these wires have been in there for a while, they do have a little bit of corrosion on them. I'm just going to try and clean them up a little bit and get a bit of that off. That will give us a better connection when we go to plug everything in. So your setup may vary, but for me it's red to red, green to green and black to the white wire. So what I'm going to do just to test it is hold the wires while I've got the indicators on. And you can see that the indicator is working there. So once you've done that, you can go ahead and connect those wires up in your preferred method. So for these particular sets of connectors, you grab your wire and you insert it through the bottom. And then you bend over these little tabs. Once you've got the pins put together, you can grab these little rubber grommets and slide them over, and that keeps it nice and watertight. Once you've got those on, grab your plug and you're going to be sliding each of these up and in until it clicks. Once all the wires are in, you can push these little rubber grommets further into the plug. And then this particular design of clip has a little latch that clips over like that and it holds the wires in. Now just make sure that you match up the wires correctly as well. So if you need to check it, grab the other plug and just figure out which orientation it sits in. So in our case, it's like this. So make sure that you have the red wire on this side. Once you've done the other side, just do one last check. Push the plug together and you can see it's working. So now we're ready to actually install this into the bull bar. So to install the plastic housing that the indicators sit in, just grab these small black screws and the small rubber washer and these 4 clips. And the way it works is this goes onto the bull bar and then these clips come in from behind and get screwed in to the 4 corners of the housing. Quick tip, just install the top 2 clips loosely, just so when you slide this in, it'll hold it there. Next, install the bottom 2 clips. Once you've got them all in loosely, you can nip them up. And you can see that the housing's nice and secure. Next, grab your indicator and take out the screws from here, and you're going to replace them with the screws that came in the kit. So these are the pieces that come out of the indicators that you don't actually need to reuse. Now, to install the indicator correctly, you'll notice that on one side it has drain holes. You want these 2 holes to be facing the bottom of the car so that if there's any condensation, it'll just drain out. So then you orientate the indicator like that and you can screw it in to the housing. Once all the screws are nice and tight, you can grab your cable, plug it back in, and then you can grab all the cables and grab some cable ties and cable tie these out of the way. That'll stop them from hanging down and getting caught on anything underneath. Once you've done that, you can do the same on the other side. So, the final step in the Bull Bar install is to put your license plate on. Grab the 20 by 6 mil bolts and you can grab a 10 mil socket to do them up. And that's a wrap, guys. If there's anything you would have done differently or stuff you want to see, let us know in the comments below. Otherwise, we'll see you in the next video. So we've waited about 6.5 years for this ARB Bull Bar. ARB stands for Australian Rural Businesses. Support local, ladies and gentlemen.
Is that really what it stands for?
No. Hiya. Can I get a hiya? Can I get So the it's like the director's chair.
Let's make a motion picture.
Just leave one bolt in on either side and get a big muscly gorilla to hold the So we've just taped some washers together. I feel like I'm going to be like, hello.
You don't have to put your face there, just go like that.
Oh my goodness. So how's your weekend? With the help of your local potato farmer. So with the help of your local potato farmer.
Big smile, big enthusiasm.